Hello, everyone, and welcome to Geek Spiel on Air. My name is Chris, a.k.a. Tiny Rhino, and you might notice a difference this week. That's because Chris Cornell is not visually present. It's mostly because he's actually running things behind the scenes right now. Chris, get in chat and say hello to everyone. But we're joined by a new face / old face / face you never see, which is Matt, our producer, a somewhat producer, not anymore. Yeah, / jerk face, because I'm mad at him about tonight's conversation. Matt, say hello, and what have you been up to this week?
Well, it takes a lot of time to push all the buttons for Geek Spiel here, but I had to come on the show tonight because this is the week that Chris and we usually fight where you can't see it, where everybody can't see it, but now we're going to fight on air.
True Ameritrash style, right?
Yeah, he's somewhere in the Midwest, close to St. Louis, and I'm in Virginia. But there's going to be bruises when we're done here tonight, I think. So
yeah, our feelings will be hurt, I'm sure.
Well, I have tender feelings. My feelings get hurt easily. So.
Oh, okay, good. Well, then it's not hard.
I got flagged on the chat already.
Gil, you just put hello all. Like, how did you get?
Oh, you said the word hate. Don't do that.
Oh, don't say hate. We don't hate people. Gil, you don't have to post in chat. You can say out loud. Gil, say hello.
Hello. How's everybody doing tonight? Look at that. My beard grew another inch. So in about 12 months, I'll be as cute as Chris Walker's.
Well, I think the beautiful part about this is that as long as your beard grows, mine does too. So you say 12 months.
But by that time, then I'm gonna look cool, and you're gonna look like the old man from the river.
Oh, ZZ Tops.
Yeah. ZZ Lowe's in his case.
I don't know if ZZ's got red beard, but we'll see. We'll see. Okay, so we're gonna do a little bit of chat. Again, as Matt shared, we are talking about Ameritrash games or Amerithrash games or Ameri-style games, whatever you want to call it. And we'll go into that here in a minute. But as we start every show, Geek Spiel on Air, specifically Geek Spiel, the channel is a PG-13 stream meant to include all gamers, be here for gamers, and it's designed by gamers. And so we want to make sure that we're talking games, we're having a good time. Join us in Discord. The link's below the Twitch chat. We actually had a couple of folks joining the Discord channel recently, and we've done a lot more pickup games since then. Shout out to today. We were just playing Seasons. So a great game, one. And then a wonderful pickup, just kind of playing in general. And so come join us. Come post in chat that you want to play a game. Tell us your favorite game. Come teach it to us. And we'll have a good time. Also know that we've got Twitch chat going, and I'm kind of looking at it. So feel free to post what you want to post. Ask the questions, especially tonight. I think it's going to be a little bit of fueled passion and aggression. So feel free to tell us your favorite or not favorite Ameritrash games. And I guess let's go right into it. So we last week played on Table Crashers, because I forgot we always do kind of a recap of Table Crashers. We played Role Player. I played Role Player. I loved it. It's fantastic. I hadn't really got to play it too much, and it's again my favorite part of D&D, which is all about making my character. Matt, you got to produce it, but you were sitting there talking to us and all the things. What did you think about it?
I did, and I'm really excited about it because I did not get the original game. I backed the Kickstarter for the expansions, Minions and Monsters, Monsters and Minions, and in that I pledged extra so they would send me the base game with it. Right. So I've got the base game and the expansion, and of course I got to buy the metal coins. Gil, you didn't know it, but there were metal coins in that Kickstarter, so I got them as well too. But we actually on Wednesday night, what Chris left out was we played with Keith Mateka. We played with the designer from Thunderworks Games, and Chris ended up, as we tend to do on Table Crashers, he beat the designer at his own game.
Yep.
So producing that from behind the camera, I really felt like Keith had it set up, the machine set up where he was going to thump you guys, because he was making some early decisions, but Chris's long-term strategy came in well for that. So
I heard that those designers need to stop being so nice and just not play full throttle.
It's like they want to show up to our show and be asked back or something, so they think they gotta let me win all the time.
Gil, have you played that game before? Role
I
player?
have.
Yeah.
I like it 3 players. I don't like 4 players. I think 4 is one too many on that game.
Well, Chris scored. He ended with 36 points. So I mean, that's a huge score. Yeah, I was proud of him. I was rooting for him because everybody knows Chris and I are best friends. I'm always trying to build him up and make him feel good about himself.
Right. We've been talking about how Matt and I talk to each other more than we talk to our wives some days. So we're best friends. I don't know.
I can leave. I can leave you guys alone.
No, you're my other best friend, Gil. Don't go anywhere.
Right.
I don't have real friends that I can hang out with. They're all on the internet.
Right. Just digital friends.
Yeah, my life.
Drink beer with. And, yeah. And then Matt, who do we have coming up this week?
This week we're going to have Mark LeBlanc and Edo Baraf, and they're going to come on and talk about Mark's, and Ed's. He's publishing Mark's game called Heroes Welcome, and that is not digitally available, but it is a Kickstarter that ends in 4 or 5 days, and they are funded. It's a cute little game. It's a nice little mix game. It's not. I wouldn't. Tune in Wednesday to see what it's about. But we're gonna either play Kalis or Istanbul with them, since their game is not on Tabletop Sim. So something different to beat them at. I actually was just looking at Kalis today and see that that's a fine example of worker placement. So maybe we'll pick that one. But
Gil, do you have an opinion between the two, Istanbul or Kalis?
In between the two, did I miss something?
Yeah, which game do you think would come across on Tabletop Simulator better? Kalis, the worker placement, or Istanbul?
I didn't play Kalis ever. I don't know how that game goes. I have played Istanbul. I have never played digitally. I've played analogically. Is that a word in English? Yeah, analogically. But
I have had the experience with Istanbul. I just don't have the Kalis experience.
Yeah.
Well, Ryan is out again this week, so you're finding out on air, Gil. I think you're going to host for me this week, so we'll see.
This week is RiverCon, so...
No, Wednesday.
Oh.
Nice try.
Gil got the news broke to him in the best possible way on air, so we can't react.
Between midnight and 6. That's fine.
All right, so we're gonna talk about Ameritrash games tonight, and I'll give a disclaimer, right? So I know some folks find Ameritrash as the term offensive and so on. I think as a community, folks who are Ameritrash players kind of embrace it a little bit. From some of the other folks I've been talking to and stuff, it's just kind of this throwback to, for a while, games coming out of the Americas were just not great. They were kind of thrown together for a little while compared to Euros, and they kind of just got back into all of a sudden this stream of just producing just this different style game. And there's a couple of precursors to like really what makes an Ameritrash game. But for Matt and Gil, what for you really makes an Ameritrash game? What is the principle that stands out more than anything else?
Well, when it comes to catchphrases, it's all about opinion, right? Who decides what it is, what it's not, right? I will have my own opinion. You have your own opinion. Doesn't mean, as long as you don't stray too far away. It's like the same thing with the Euro. Like there's a lot of Euros being made in Japan. We still call them Euro games, because of the style. But normally, if it's very heavily on the theme, it's a sign for me of Ameritrash. There's some kind of interaction or heavily interacting play between players. That's another thing that really counts for me as an Ameritrash. So there's, either a skirmish or a fight. And a lot of the, games that have some kind of a rolling dice with mitigation, normally like some battles or card games, and I know a lot of people think there has to be some kind of miniatures and stuff, but not always. Like you look at Summoner Wars, a great Ameritrash, if you want to call that, a skirmish game, which shows that skirmish game doesn't need miniatures and stuff like that as well. Right. So yeah, it's a little broad because a lot of games nowadays you can call them Ameritrash, but they're virgin not. So it's hard. So I would say heavily thematic, players' interaction and some of kind of a battle with cards or dice that has a mitigation. I mean, there's some luck to it, but there's always mitigation involved on it. And that's my personal view. That's how when I play a game, and those things kind of make me feel like I'm playing Ameritrash. Now, probably there's much more about it than this, but that's personally for me how I feel about a game, and I decide if it's Ameritrash or not for me.
Okay. Matt, what about you?
I think the key thing that Chris Walters and I are going to agree on tonight, and that is that Ameritrash is an incredibly unfair term that kind of sends a negative connotation with it because it's got the word trash in it, right? So, Jason in our Twitch chat here just now is asking, wait a minute, I'm learning new words here. What do you mean Ameritrash? And for me, it kind of, when you coin something like that, you're coining it as a knock on it because it's something that you're looking down upon, and we talk about them as in comparison to the Euros. And a Euro is a style of game that is sometimes language independent because it isn't, it's not heavy on rules that have to, lots of printing on the cards that have to be read. It's a strategy. There's a resource that you have to manage, or there's something like this, and you have to make decisions strategically to be able to pursue the end. Like what is probably Settlers of Catan a fine example of what a Euro game would be.
I got you one right here. Yes, Settlers, I would think, but also Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico. Yeah, there we go.
If I'm going to pull to a Euro, I mean, this is a solid start to Euros.
So there are decisions that you make that you can make strategically. There are multiple paths to victory. There are all those kind of things that make those games well balanced and well appreciated. I don't see why we have to say it's one or the other. I mean, I guess in board game pundency, people want to say, it's like with everything else, either I'm right or you're right. We can't both be right. Mm-hmm. There has to be somebody wrong in this situation. And Chris and I are actually having some fun with playing off of that here tonight, which is probably not furthering our cause. But I find myself struggling with the fact that I can like all of these things. I've got hundreds of games. I certainly love the Euros and the big crunchy Lisboa that Gil and I played for 8 hours at PAX was fun and challenging and deep. And every time you look
before 3 of those hours were me trying to teach the game.
But you know what? I went to that thing to play games with my friends, and that's what we did. And we got into a really well developed game that has a lot of depth to it and a lot of things to do. And, there was a lot of decisions that could be made that were not wrong. So, you could make a mistake in that game, shift your strategy and come back from it. That's a well balanced, crunchy Euro game. The Ameritrash games that term has embodied, I don't see what's wrong with them. I get together with my friends to play games. If it's Lisboa or if it's Battlestar Galactica, I have had some of the best times in my life sitting around with my friends, calling them names, calling them toasters. That's what we get together for. And the fact that the game, some of these Ameritrash games may be, dice rolling combat. Okay. I'd like to be able to beat Gil with superior strategy on a map with dudes, then build my whole thing up, confront him, and then roll a bunch of ones and die on the field. I mean, that would be frustrating to me, and that's the knock against some of these so-called air quote Ameritrash games.
Yeah. I don't know if I agree with you 100% that everybody see or when they hear Ameritrash, that's what they think. I think it become a little bit of a definition. And as Chris mentioned in the beginning, Ameritrash games came a long way as quality theme and rules. I don't know. I don't see as being downing on the game just because of the term. Once you can make bad things to be good too.
Absolutely. And for a community that is a lot about role playing, theme and story is important to a lot of us. So. Right. And I really like to appreciate it. If it weren't for theme, there are games that I'd never get on the table with my 10-year-old son or my wife.
Right. Well, I was going to say some of the gateway games that I use, the reason my folks, my in-person gaming groups play these games is because of theme. And I think Gil touched on this a little bit. I think Matt touched this on a little bit. But I really do think Ameritrash and Euro style games are kind of antiquated definitions, right? I think they served a purpose for a while, but Gil was talking about this off stream. Now you're seeing modern hybrid games that are really just encompassing all components, right? I think oftentimes with Euros, you think of these games that are, you know, you literally slap a theme on it just to like design the art, right? And like you think old school Ameritrash are like, oh, it's about war and combat. So like, of course, that theme is integral. But now you're seeing Euro games with themes that are, I mean, again, I would say Pursuit of Happiness is one that is again full of theme, and it's a solid worker placement. Like the whole theme of that draw that's driven is the game of life, and I don't think you would play that game. I mean, the mechanics are okay, you know, the tension of the game's not really there. It's truly the theme, and you know, I think you think of some of these more like modern, you know, quote unquote Ameritrash games, and you're starting to see them have these really cool mechanics, right? Again, it's not just, you know, I'm going to beat you up. Like I'm going to go to the other person. I'm just going to fight them a bunch. But it's also, you know, I need to build my army with resources instead of just magically having those resources. I now have to grow them. And I do think that makes a difference. And I think that we're starting to see some of those breakdowns cut down just a little bit.
I find myself wondering if maybe Ameritrash isn't a term created by Euro game designers to try and put down the advances in board gaming that the U.S. is making. You know, I mean, this is something that for 20 years or 30 years the Europeans had all over America, because America was monopoly in Trivial Pursuit. And as the market has matured here in the U.S., and I mean, look at Kickstarter any day, and you'll find well-themed, well-balanced, well-play-tested games that are available. So you know, I reject the Ameritrash name on premise alone. So I think there's some great stuff out there. And if you want to call it Ameritrash, great.
Just for the fact you reject me, I'm going to use it just because. That was reason enough for me to use it.
You'll see the hair on the back of my neck go up. So.
Well, we're having some chat in Twitch chat, and I just want to catch everyone out. We are talking about Ameritrash games. Again, as Gil kind of mentioned, these stereotypically seen as heavy-themed games with a player-to-player interaction versus Euros that don't have quite as much of that. We're talking about games that are a little bit more dependent on randomness and luck, typically seen through die rolls. And again, I think this is antiquated, but typically there's this focus on miniatures or pieces being more kind of a part of the game, again, in some of the earlier definitions. So Gil, I was cutting you off. Why don't you hop back in?
No, I was just something on the things you're saying, but I think the influence of games coming out of North America, and I'm including Canada because Canada has big development in games
right.
as well, is Euro games, since we're using terms here, are actually playing catch-up on theme. Like people in Europe and here in US, they kind of twitch their nose nowadays when there's a Euro game that is spaced on. So you see more and more Euro games going an extra length to be more thematic, to be more like Ameritrash.
Right.
Love just to see Matt's face every time I say it. So to be more thematic, because there's the other way around. Like I bought Fallout, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I read the rules, but for some reason it didn't come across to me as an Euro game until I played it the first time. And it's basically a game that, I mean, you look at the theme, everything is supposed to be like a crunching game, a nice Ameritrash game. It's not. It's like playing a solo game with 4 people. That's what Fallout is. It's like a solo game for 4 people. It's pure Euro thing. So there is that too. There is like this, you know, this main brain that is getting mixed up, that you don't know where one thing starts and the other. So I think that's great for the hobby, though. I've said before we start here, I said, I don't know if I have a lot of Ameritrash. And then I went into my shelf and I came back and said, maybe I do love Ameritrash because like half of my games. And I just don't think about those things anymore. I don't buy a game for those reasons anymore. It's just, hey, look at that rule. Oh, that game looks awesome. So
This show is 100% proof that clickbait is what it is. That I think the Ameritrash is a clickbait word. We named the show because we wanted to have this conversation, but I think we kind of all agree that Ameritrash really shouldn't be. I don't look at a game and think, oh, that's Ameritrash. I look at it and think, oh, that's worker placement, or I look at it and I think, oh, that's so. I will say, and Jason in chat has asked, do we think the conspiracy theory aside, did this originate as a derogatory term? And I'd have to say, you put the phrase trash in there, and it's absolutely derogatory. You're trying to say you don't like something, right? This isn't America style games. This is Ameritrash games. Putting a word where it didn't exist, but I don't think it really counts for anything anymore, because all of these games that we've talked about that Board Game Geek considers in the Ameritrash genre or in the Ameritrash tag are the heavy theme. You're not going to convince anybody that a game is good or bad based on mechanics or based on style if they like the theme.
Right.
You can tell me all you want about Battlestar Galactica. I think it's a great game because I love BSG. I love the thought of I'm Starbuck out there flying around trying to shoot down. So I'm going to enjoy myself in that game in almost every situation, no matter what anybody has to say about the review of the gameplay itself. Likewise, or on the other side,
IP alone is what I mean. The IP makes that game.
Yeah.
Right.
Better.
Right. But you go to the other side of the coin and you look at Arkham Horror and Eldritch Horror and those games, and people are crazy about them. People love to play them. It's a cooperative opportunity, all these other kind of things. I'm not a big fan of Lovecraft.
Stop it. Don't say it.
I don't like Lovecraft. I just never got in. I never liked scary movies as a kid. I never liked that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So it's a theme that I'm not invested in. And I could go either way on the game. I certainly, if the right group of folks wanted to sit down and go insane on it, I would give it a shot. But I discount my rating or my thoughts on the game because I'm not a fan of the theme. So maybe that's the biggest downfall of Ameritrash as a genre.
Well, Jason says this in chat about how that's why Munchkin has 327 versions, right?
Right.
If Digital Carnage was on the show, you'd see his Flex poster in the background.
Yeah.
Right. Like he that's why that happens. I do think that for me, one of the characteristics of a game that I don't enjoy is randomness. And I think you're always going to have some version of randomness. Like you're going to have asymmetrical starts. You're going to have when you have a deck of cards, like you got to shuffle it. Right. But I think what really turns off a game for me is just that absolute randomness. And I think I love Battlestar Galactica. It is one of those that I will play over and over and over and over and over again. But I get so frustrated. And Matt, you said this at the beginning. It's like if it's a game you love, then like you can look past some of the pieces. And Battlestar is an example of that for me. But I definitely find myself getting into the middle of the game, and which is why I love these like crunchy games so much. Is I sometimes you just roll crap on your Vipers are going in, and you're trying to get combat, and you just roll 6 1s in a row, and you're just and that's not skill to me. That's not like it just feels crappy when all of a sudden you're just like, I could have won this, but like I didn't. And it wasn't because I made a bad mistake. It was just because a die landed on one side versus the other. It just feels wonky to me sometimes.
And some of those games that have a high investment in time, Twilight Imperium, if you get into the middle of one of those games, you're 4 hours into a 9-hour game, and you're not having fun. It's clear that you're probably not going to be a winner because you can see someone else taking over the universe on the other side of the table. I'm starting to hope that I have a family member has a heart attack, or I got some reason to get out of there for, the next 5 hours are going to be hard to take if there's not good tacos, so.
Yeah, I don't mind randomness if it's just part of the game, right? If it's one of the race, or if there's mitigation, or if there's some kind of mitigation. And I think we're seeing more and more like dice games, for example, not dice placement, but dice games having more mitigation system. And I think that is great, because I think that your complaint is not you alone. I think that's majority. I think the gamers have that same view that you have.
Right.
Even people like Euro and don't like confrontational games and
Right.
stuff like this, I've seen people get mad and frustrated and hit the table as many times as playing games that has confrontation,
True.
Which is where the crossovers are wonderful, because I have thousands of dice, like probably everybody who's watching us on Twitch. I have dice collections and dice that I don't need, and that kind. I love the sensation of the sound they make when they hit the table. There's such a tactile enjoyment to that for me. But like Chris, I don't like rolling a fistful of dice and where they land is what completely determines my outcome. So you look at Role Player and those places where they take mechanics like that, where yes, there's some luck, there's rolling, but then you draft.
Right.
And now there's strategy to what number you're going to get. Now there's mechanics to turn it over and reposition it and turn a bad into a good. So, Sagrada,
I was just going to mention Sagrada. We played that a couple of weeks ago, and just the ability to say, there are 3 different rules, and you can spend a bonus token to take care of that rule. And sometimes that rule is, and I think what I liked about, yes, the randomness is there, and the Role Player does this too. A low roll is not necessarily a bad roll. Right? There's a place for a low roll. Sometimes in a Sagrada map, your outline, you have to have the 2 somewhere. So if I can put it somewhere, that makes sense to me. I can do something with that. Role Player the same way. There are some of those cards that say get an 8 or lower. It's a dump stat, right? Like we all, and again, theme, right? That we all, if you're a tabletop RPGer, like the dump stat rule. And it's like, my barbarian doesn't need to be smart, so buy wisdom. Like that's what happens. But I do think that if there's ways to mitigate that, and again, I think we're preaching to the choir here, right? When those games become more modern and start integrating some of those mechanics that we enjoy, right? Like I love Battlestar because it's got the theme, and there's the dice rolling is only a small portion of it. Yeah, it sucks when it happens, but at the same point, like I can win a game of Battlestar even if I rolled crappy the entire game.
It's funny. I see a lot of people talk bad about Battlestar Galactica, and it's one game that doesn't matter where I go, any convention, there's always a group of people.
Oh yeah,
playing it. Yeah.
I took a drink of water at the wrong time, apparently.
Yeah, was that water? I thought you had.
Well, this is my whiskey cup. This is my water.
My water
stay
cup.
Hydrated. Yeah.
I've got to stay hydrated. Right. You don't want me sloshed at the end of this video.
There are a couple of things too. Technology has helped board games immensely. Not only, I'm not talking about miniatures and stuff, but graphics and player's aid and stuff like that. Also, the internet, like you can get a guy on the other side of the planet reading rules to make sure that makes sense. Because it's like that's the worst thing is when you make rules and you and a couple of your friends read the rules but the game. Like nowadays, you can just send copies. Like technology allows people to make even Kickstarters to make review copies where they can send it to everybody. Right. So people play test those things or do virtual like tabletop simulators. So. Right. I think those great tools is where designers and publishers are being able to pick up mechanics from both side of the spectrum and bring them together and say, hey, we're going to make a 4X game here. So we're going to have battle, but we're going to have hand management. We're going to have resource. We're going to have engine building. You have all those things putting together and it works just beautifully. And I think that we're living in a great time, and I think it's going to be better yet. For this kind of thing, and that's where I think those, just those terms are going to fade away a little bit. We're going to use those forever, but not as strongly anymore because that line is going to blur exactly because of this. Because you can try things nowadays you couldn't afford it because they were too expensive in the past, or whoever had the money for those things were just interested in putting out. I know people were mentioned diplomacy here and stuff on them. I think games are going to get better. So I know I repeat myself, but I think that's what we're going to see. And we're going to see both. I'm going to see more interaction between players in Aero, not in every Aero, but I think it's going to grow into Aero games. Some kind of interaction, not necessarily fighting, but obstruction, to other players. And we're going to see more Aero mechanics applying to American style games, if that you want to call it.
Right. We're seeing some things in chat about Gil kind of hopping onto your conversation around using digital platforms and stuff to play games. And I agree with Griff. You're always going to have some folks who are never going to get into that digital media. And I do think that there are some folks that are still kind of reluctant to hop on to making sure their games are in TTS, but I do see it increasing. I think it's going to keep going. Let's flip thought. I guess not thought process is too much, but let's talk about what Ameritrash, or again, I think at this point we've kind of just decided what game do you have that is on your shelf that you like playing, that has that kind of combat theme or that dice rolling randomness, or again, that quote unquote Ameritrash feel. Matt, do you have a particular game that you want to pull out?
Well, we keep talking about Battlestar Galactica as one of my favorites, but really any of them. I like the Star Wars theme a good bit. So Imperial Assaults, I mean, there's a kind of game that qualifies, I think, in the Ameritrash spectrum.
Right.
Very
I've got
thematic.
X-Wing miniatures on mine as well.
Yeah. So I enjoy Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica's themes. So those kind of things really do it for me. Like I said, I want to play anything I can get to the table. So that, what my kids are interested in is really what, where my interests lie. So I play a lot of Valeria Card Kingdom right now, because that's got a little fantasy to it, and my son will play it, and it's easy enough. So I kind of swing in cycles from Ameritrash to whatever, but I don't know. It's hard for me to talk about any game other than Battlestar Galactica when it comes to the Ameritrash theme, because I've got so much time invested and so much enjoyment out of that game.
Gil, what you got?
I brought a bunch of games that I was planning to show, but I realized most of them are heavy boxes.
Your arms are tired?
No, I'm just all right. I'll move some up. So. There's some that are favorites of everybody, like Arcade Quest. Right. They have a lot of player on right now. And I bought some old and some new, like some classics like Descent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I Battlestar Galactica for sure. Arkham Horror, one of my favorites right here. I learned that game not long ago, and now I just love this game. Damn it. But there's new stuff like I would think like Blood Rage is a
right.
You can put in that category.
On a lot of lists.
Yeah. There's this little game here. Like I know there's King of Tokyo, but my favorite one of those kind of games is Arena for the Gods, which I think came out last year from Yellow. It's kind of a really interaction between players, and I love the theme. It's a bunch of standees and you just take each other's health. So those are kind of the games that I liked a lot. I think Blood Rage now. Trying to think if I would put Rise and Sun. Rise and Sun is one of those that are virgin both ways because there are a battle into it. So I think from the new ones, I would think that. I have JKR, Giant Killer Robots, on the table that I'm trying to learn today. So yeah, there's a lot of good games like that. I've never played. I never played Twilight Imperium. Never.
I haven't either.
Yeah. Gil, I was thinking about you when you started going down through this list, and as I was looking at things here the last couple of days, I saw maybe one of your top games is listed as an Ameritrash example, and that's Anachrony.
Oh yes, I don't know if it's Ameritrash.
I know. I saw it on.
I think that's a narrow game.
I saw it on a geek list listed of Ameritrash games, and I thought, nah, that can't.
I don't think that. Well, I don't know. I'm not gonna be the holder of the truth here. I don't. For me. It's the theme is amazing. Okay, if you go by thematic, I just don't think there is really, other than it's more of work placement games, and I normally consider work placement games more Euro-ish than Ameritrash. I don't know. The chat will correct me here, and the internet will let me know how wrong I am. But
this is where we get the reviews that 1 star on iTunes.
I think Anachrony should be more an Euro game than it is. Yeah. I think so. Yeah. we played yesterday. We played until 1 o'clock in the morning. We played Gloomhaven. That's my new game.
Yeah.
I love that game because I have a group of people playing that game with me that are crazy amazing. They are like backstabbers and stuff like this, screw jerks to the core. But we all like are, I don't know if that's kind of a conscious, but we're nice jerks. You know, we have fun on trying to make it, and we're playing together. We're like co-op playing. We're together trying to destroy and steal. We're like find ways to screw up each other.
Find ways to yell at each other
You know.
and call you jerks and all the things.
Yeah, that. So yeah, I should have mentioned Gloomhaven. That's definitely a really great game. Yeah, there's a lot of 1,000 games coming out every year.
Right. That's
How
what's
can you
hard.
make lists nowadays?
You can't because, and again, every game has like 17,000 mechanics anymore. Even if they're subtle, there's again, I was listening to some reviews and some podcasts today, and it's like there's this one game with a worker placement mechanic, but it's also territory domination. It's got a card drafting mechanic. There are tracks to move up and down. Like at that point, you don't have a different piece to it. I mean, it's all the same. I do want to hop over to chat. So Jason has asked, since we're defining the difference, and again, defining being very loose here, what are the themes that typically go with Euro and Ameritrash? And so I would typically say from an old and again antiquated background or definition, typically I think the player interaction really dominates that conversation. So you see a lot of those combat style, war style games, sci-fi, fantasy. I have a list of different things that I was like quote unquote thinking. Space. All of those pieces typically for me. Have some component of Ameritrash to it. Euros, I always like to describe, and I kind of make fun of it for a reason. And I think this is why Euro got that definition of like theme not being important. If you could strip away the theme of a Euro game and essentially put a new theme on it, that's a Euro. I mean, like that's a Euro game. Mm-hmm. Right. So I think of like
I'm not sure if I agree with you, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of games like he mentioned Anachrony that if you take the theme out of that game, you destroy that game.
True. And again, I think that's in a more like again when we start seeing these more moderns, but when you see Puerto Rico, right? Like Puerto Rico doesn't matter like what place you put or like what theme you put. Right, I think Agricola is one of the. I mean, in my opinion, a lot of worker placements can sometimes do that. I mean,
True.
Settlers like doesn't matter, like what theme. It's resource management. It's building up your spaces. So
it can even be in a Game of Thrones,
right. Like they literally have come out with again IP on that, and I do think that it really does, like at least from the old definitions, that was my separation in it. I don't know. Do you all agree, disagree? Again, Gil, I hear you that I think there's more modern games. You take the theme away and the game sucks or the game doesn't work. But do you feel like it maybe generally holds?
Yeah, I did say that, but at the same time, like I was more picking on you because truly. I don't want to say theme is secondary for me, but it's not as important in a lot of games. But that said, a good theme does give that extra spice, that extra goodness to the game. Yeah,
right. I can hate a game and a game mechanic, and it's a theme that I enjoy, and I'll never put it down. I'll just play it for years. And I would actually say that I'm going to pull out one of my games here, Betrayal at the House of the Hill. I to be honest with you, hate the game from a mechanic standpoint. Right? It's so arbitrary and random. Like the tile drawing is random. Your stats at some point is random. All this stuff. But it literally, one of the funniest things for me is B-list horror movies, right? These ones that just have the just goofiest storylines, and spoiler alert, right? If you don't want to know one of the scenarios in Betrayal, like don't listen. But one of the storylines is that the defector, right, the betrayer, is someone who is a mad scientist and wanted to test something about his cats. So he shrunk all of the other heroes into the size of mice. And so Ural's piece is to like get out of the house before these mice attack and eat you. And like, that's just hilarious to me. That theme just makes that game a game that I would otherwise, I think, just hate. A game that I love and I'm willing to play over. I mean, it's been on the table 20, 30, 40 times for us, just because there's always a new adventure. There's always a little something different with the theme.
So you're trying to say there's not enough gore on the Silent on what the Betrayal on the House on the Hill. Is that what you're trying to say?
No, I think that killing tiny humans with giant cats is great enough. I just,
True.
Okay, like let's see. I do have one more on my shelf that I was like Gil. I was like games. And so what's on my shelf? And I do have one. I have Dead of Winter. I think some would argue that it's not fully Ameritrash.
I think it is. I would put it as an Ameritrash game.
I would too. I do think that it's again, we start going, the player interaction is there, but it's not so much opposite, whereas it's more of a cooperative component. I mean, I think that's where Battlestar kind of gets that theme too. Yes, there's a defector. Like, yes, there is that mechanic, but in the same respect, it's cooperative. So at what point does there, does that bleed over or keep going for you?
I guess I'm just a walking contradiction, and I guess it comes back to my point about theme means everything, but I don't like Dead of Winter, probably from the theming perspective, because it really is, there's social deduction like there is in Battlestar Galactica, all these kind of things all play into that, like Secret Hitler with regards to social deduction. I just can't get never been a big fan of zombies. I guess zombies in Lovecraft, like I said, I've never been a horror game kind of guy. I would like to take a minute, though, and talk about the other side of the coin with regards to defending, or I guess not defending, but prosecuting Ameritrash. If you think about the development of board games in America, I mean, it has been dice rolling, zero decision making for a long time. I mean, think of the number of copies of Monopoly that have been sold. I spent the better part of my youth with my good friends playing Monopoly. We'd get together. That's what we would do. We'd play games like that. So you roll and move. And there is, your entire thing is based on where you land, based on the roll of those two die. Are you in jail or all that kind of stuff? There's very little decision making. There's like one massive trade where two of you gang up and screw the third guy out of, two properties that he should never let go.
You get punished for doing nothing wrong.
That's right. You get punished for doing nothing wrong. So that's where American gaming has been for 50 years.
Well, life, risk. I mean, these games that outside of maybe a probability. I mean, life, what? You pick yes, there's two tracks, but it's essentially where does that damn spinner go to, right?
Right.
Did you ever play the Monopoly to the end, Matt?
never once. No.
I guess anybody who did.
No. I tell you what. Technically, we did because somebody would just give up. Oh, I'm never coming out of this.
Someone threw the table,
flipped the table over like that magic guy. So that's where gaming has been for a long time. So what do you do, America? You take a game, and you want to make it. You want to make it where it's approachable by people who don't understand the deep strategies of Euro and thinking 7 moves ahead strategically and what's my overall strategy in this game going to be. So what do? You slather on a high-priced IP. Intellectual property will sell games. You know, how many of the games on my shelf are because I like the IP, knew nothing about the game? More of them than I cared to think. So if I'm in business, if I'm Fantasy Flight, I'm going to go out and I'm going to pay a ton of money for Star Wars. I'm going to pay a ton of money to whatever the heck Richard Garfield's working on because I'm going to sell that, right? So
that's why their insert sucks because they spend all the money on the IP.
They spend all their money on the IP and then dreaming up expansions for it to get more money out of it. It's a business. I can appreciate what they're trying to do there, you know? So I think that's why, maybe that's where the Ameritrash might become derogatory, is that they spent more money on making the game appealing and look good than they did on developing strategic pieces and components to the game that you can improve gameplay. So it definitely feels like American.
Yeah, I'll talk all kinds of trash on Ameritrash games. Like I have no qualms on it, and I do think that I agree with you, Matt. There's this history behind it. I do think we're starting to see some quote unquote mechanics and styles come out of like North America as these game designers and game companies are actually starting to get some level footing. I mean, again, like Gil said, you're seeing thousands of games come out of small makers and marketing pieces. Kickstarter, I mean, is a thing where you're seeing folks, yes, from the UK and from Europe, you're seeing a lot of these games come from the North America as well. And so, I don't know. I think for me, they're just antiquated terms. I think Board Game Geek has started switching over to themed games, right? Like they don't even call it Ameritrash anymore. It's just like theme-based games or heavy theme games. And I just don't think the definition matters anymore. I don't know why folks use it. I mean, I only use Euros to really kind of talk about heavy strategy. And again, similar to Gil, I walked down to my shelves downstairs and I was just like, okay, well, like what's what? And I was like, I actually probably have a little bit more Ameritrash style games than I want to admit on stream because I think they're silly, but they just really don't hold that specific, you're either this or you're either that anymore.
I think the market is going to get filled with better games because of Kickstarter.
Right.
Cool Mini or not, CMON is going to put out an awesome Eric Lang game that's going to have 75 plastic miniatures of dragons or mobsters or whatever. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be $1,000 and they're going to sell a bunch of them. That's where there's a lot of money to be made in this market. I mean, what did that Batman game actually end up selling at? I mean, 3 million or 4 million or something crazy.
I think it was way before. I think they passed 5, right?
Did they really? It was crazy.
It was ridiculous.
But then you go over to the other side of it and you look at Fire in the Library from Weird Giraffe. And we played that game incorrectly on air, but we played it on air. And I don't much care for press your luck games. I tend to press my luck further than I should, and I end up regretting my decisions. But that game was just kind of fun. I mean, it was interesting. It was a mechanic that we don't usually see. There were some really cool things. It's art by Beth Sobel, which makes it beautiful.
Right, great art.
But then you, Chris, you were in that game and you're like, screw it. I'm just going to keep pressing until the library burns down. So every turn you got, you were just like, I give up. I'm just going to keep going until this thing falls down.
I'm going to try and score as many points possible.
Yeah, and it never worked out. You had like zero, 3/4 of the way through the game.
Because I didn't have any cubes that weren't red.
Right.
I truly think that's what it was. But
right. But watching Nick Kopp, he was like, yeah, this game never ends this early. And you were like, maybe we're going to set a record here then. And
I was going to say, let me set that record for you.
Yeah.
I got you.
And in the back of my head, I thought to myself, if you don't have the right gaming group and you got a guy with a bad attitude, you could ruin game night.
On your game.
If you have Chris in your game, Matt just called me the dude with a bad attitude in our gaming group. But I agree with that, and I do think some of those games, I do think you have to. This is quickly diverging from topics, but I do think when you're talking about gaming group, you have to find a crew that is going to fit together well. I think especially on some of these games where player interaction is key, right? Like if you get someone who's going to take it too seriously when someone comes out, I mean, you look at every Table Crasher game we have ever had, and I think I am, especially when Digital Carnage is playing, and he's laughing in my ear, so I find this funny. He comes at me. He did that with Role Player last week. He was like, I'm going to screw you over so that Keith can win. And he didn't. I still won. It's fine. But I think the biggest piece for me is that, if you're going to play one of those games with a lot of player interaction, you got to have someone who's not going to care, because what sucks is when you have the one person who's so competitive that they'll attack you, and they're like, well, don't get upset because it's just the strategy of the game, right? But then you do that back, and then it's just like, again, flipping table. It's like Monopoly when you're 10 and you were pissed because you lost all the money and landed on Boardwalk, right?
Yeah. In video games, you can rage quit. You can just, I'm done. Anonymity of the internet allows you to just, drop an F-bomb and hang up.
Right.
Whereas if you're in the room with people and, I'm planning on staying at Gil's house for the weekend, I really can't flip his table over and punch him in the nose, so.
If you can lift that table, you're welcome to try.
You've never seen me angry.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. I knew that reference coming.
The Red Hulk.
Right. Gil, what do you feel about with the party dynamics? What I mean, do you think that the one style of game leads more to that certain group? I mean, is there a game or a style of games that you can pick up and play with just about anyone versus a style of games that you got to have that right group to play with?
That too, but in general, the right group will make you love or hate board game as a whole, right? You play your first games with a bunch of jerks. That's what you're going to bring out of that game. You're going to hate board games. Now, there are board games. That said, there are board games that I was just making fun, like our game of Guggenheim. Even in a game that we're co-op, we're still trying to step on each other's toes for fun, So it's hard because sometimes you have groups that are very loose and very like to poke each other, and you get a guy who is not that guy, who's kind of introvert, doesn't like much interaction. So it is important for that specific person find their specific group, because it's not always about the group. It's sometimes about the individual too. You and I can be the problem sometimes, right? We just didn't match in that group, so you have to find the right group.
Right.
But I think games, especially games that have players interaction, the group is very important. I mean, you gotta sit in the game. Sometimes I don't understand. I stop in a shop and watching people just for fun, watching them play miniature games, and those people go angry and I mean, I'm like, why are you playing at all?
Right.
I mean, maybe something that I don't understand, but for me, playing games is all about having fun and having a good time. And if you're playing just get stressed and mad, I just don't understand people do that. But hey, that's me. So I think those games are especially better if you have the right group to play it. Yeah.
Well, Gil, that's what somebody who's not very good at games would say. But I like to play. I like to play to win.
But see, that's the thing. Playing, I hate playing with people who doesn't play to win. That drives me more. That makes me more upset than playing with hardcore games.
Yeah.
Right.
I can just get mad at hardcore, but playing with people like, oh, okay, it's my turn. Sure.
Yeah.
Right. Who are on their phone the whole time? Like you're sitting there saying, like, "It's your turn. It's your turn."
Yeah. I can tolerate ignorance and apathy a little bit better than I can the kingmaker. Okay, I can't win this game. I have no path to victory, but I'm kind of tick at you, Gil. So I'm going to I'm going to make a stupid trade to Chris, so he has all my good cards, and he's going to win. Oh man, I will. We're talking about
another Hulk reference.
They're talking about the Red Hulk in chat. That will get me to walk away from a table in a real hurry.
I typically don't like that strategy as well. Like king making is obnoxious and ridiculous to me, unless it's against digital carnage, and then I'm all about making sure someone else wins, just like he does for me. So we're running up on our hour, our arbitrary hour that we think you all will listen to. Any last minute thoughts from us about? I mean, again, our quote unquote gaming expert podcast that we like to pretend like we know what we're talking about.
I will say that anybody who's watched this last full hour is really disappointed that you and I didn't argue with each other more.
I know.
We kind of built it up as this was going to be a SmackDown, and it turns out we kind of both agree. There are things we like, there are things we don't like. I have over 200 games in my collection, and I know not everybody has that many games, but I'm going to get a game whether there's a derogatory reference made about the type of game that it is or not. You know, I evaluate all my purchases based on if that's something that I think I would enjoy playing, or if I think that someone that I care about would enjoy playing, and go. You know, and you know some of the games that qualify in Ameritrash, I pass on them because I don't like the theme. Like I said, Arkham Horror, Rising Sun, so I don't know. I think it's subjective, like all things. That's why we're pundits. That's why there's 50,000 YouTube channels, because everybody has different feelings and everybody's opinion is mildly or wildly different. But you do you, I'll do me, and the more that we buy, the more that we encourage the designers and the game makers that make the stuff we like, the more that kind of stuff it'll be available.
Yeah, for sure. Gil, do you have any thoughts?
Never have thoughts. I'm just mumbling.
Right, there's just someone talking in there.
Yeah, other than I'm going to be repeating Ameritrash every time I see Matt.
I'll get a tattoo.
Send him,
send him random texts every day. Oh, I went to the restaurant, Ameritrash.
Yeah.
No, I think, I really don't get bothered as much by what references of styles, and I don't fight about styles as much. I really could care less if people say Ameritrash. Doesn't affect me as much. Maybe not being American has something to do with it, but I don't think so. I think it's more like reference mean nothing to me. It's just catchphrases, and that's all.
Right.
So as long as the game is good. I mean, I love, like we talk about it. I love Planets of the Apes, but that game, which is probably the worst game I have on the shelf right now. I'm thinking about doing a bonfire one of those days. So it doesn't matter the theme. Like, even a good IP that I love that can be that ridiculously bad game made by IDW. I'm gonna name names now, but yeah. No, I think it's good. Just play games, have fun.
Right,
Don't get attached too easily. Yeah. Other than the Torquemada is my new arch enemy. Other than that, I
love how this show has literally just created people who hate each other. Like, we have rivals that we've just created by interacting with games.
Our rivalry is friendly. I mean,
well, no, Chris and I is pure hatred. It's just venom and distaste and all the things. No, I think what I love about folks having different styles and, gosh, even different definitions. Like, don't argue. I'm not going to argue with you about it, but I think what I love about it is that it gives us the chance to play something new, right? So I know I like playing with Matt. I know I like playing games with Gil. If they've got a game, I mean, I've already played Battlestar, but I know Matt loves it, and so if it's a game I haven't played and I like playing with him, gosh, let him throw it out there. Let's play something new. I think that's, for me, that's just the heart of the genre is doing something different. I mean, I love board games so much. I guess I really don't care if I hate a game so much that at the end I'm just gonna be pissed about it. Then I'm gonna bring it to the talk show. So, like, I'll play anything at this point. But I do think that for me, it's, gosh, if anything, the fact that folks have different styles and different things they love is another opportunity for me to learn if it's a game that I like or a game that I don't. I don't think I would have liked Battlestar Galactica if it wasn't for the IP. And I do think that is because someone was like, I love Battlestar Galactica. I'm bringing this game. We've got to play it. We played it a couple of times. That's why I loved it. So, again, I'm all about trying new things, and I think that us having different likes and dislikes, different styles, is what makes that.
And to be fair, we couldn't use the term Eurotrash because it's been used for something else already, right?
That's also true. And that's another reason why folks were like, hey, we should not use Ameritrash, but, that's all the things there. I'm looking in chat. I don't see anything that's Jason puts next episode Canadian trash games.
I will say that anybody who's not watching this live, if they're watching it on VOD or YouTube or listening to the podcast, come to Twitch when we record this Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, because Jason is getting moderated by the auto mod thing for the most innocuous things. He'll say, I really like your hair today, and it'll stick him in this temporary ban. Oh, he just can't talk, I guess. It's classic. Next week is Chris. Next week is the drafting game mechanic. If you wanted to.
Okay. I do, and then I will say that here in 2 weeks, I think, is what Matt and I decided. We're going to talk about some of the research. I'm actually having someone that it's their project, and I'm actually helping them talking about violence and harassment within gaming circles and geek and nerd fandom. So that's 2 weeks from now. But yes, drafting mechanic. And I will say that for me, and we'll tweet out the things and all of the stuff. I think drafting mechanics is. I think I say this every week, besides Ameritrash games. Drafting mechanics is probably my favorite mechanic. I said that for worker placement. I've said that for co-op. I've said that for just about everything. I love a good drafting, and I think that it makes it so much fun. I want to push people to think beyond just card drafting. And not just card drafting, but let's think about role drafting versus resource drafting. Let's think about dice drafting versus card drafting. I really want to push that envelope because I do think that we're seeing some really creative stuff come out right now. I mean, gosh, even with deck builders, we're seeing these drafting mechanics come up with card crafting, right? Like you think of Matt, you said it earlier. What game was it?
Valeria. Yeah, Valeria Card Kingdoms.
Yeah. So yeah, it's one of those that's another one that's coming out with something different and doing something different. So yeah, I think it's going to be a great combo. If y'all have some specific card drafters, let me know, and we'll put them on Twitter and we'll start chatting up about it, and maybe we'll see them next week. Do you all have any thoughts on card drafting or draft mechanics before we get into it?
Yeah, I think we should try and make a big push on the Discord this week and play some of this kind of stuff. Play Puerto Rico, where you're role drafting. Play, Role Player was a heck of a lot of fun, and there's drafting in that. Sagrada drafting. Yeah, I think drafting is a great a balancer of other mechanics.
Custom Heroes. Is that the game you mentioned before? I know Custom Heroes has some card crafting.
Costume Heroes? No, I don't know that one.
I think it's a Japanese card game. It's fun.
Yeah.
Mystic Veil, I think, is the game that came out with the card crafting.
That's what I meant. Not Valeria.
Not Valeria. All right.
And we've got in chat, Griff's talking about Colony, that it's dice drafting. And then Frank's like, what the heck are these terms? Can I get a manual? Drafting means you select it.
Yeah.
Clank. I mean, Clank
is awesome on TTS.
Right.
It really plays well on TTS.
I love Clank. I'd play Clank all day.
The thing is that Frank is he's like a I don't know how to do this, and then come in and win. Is how Frank is.
Well, Frank's a big troll. So
he's a troll.
Torquemada, Frank, whatever you want to call him, Toaster. He's a giant troll, and we can't have him playing our games because I don't think Frank and I have played.
Trust him. Don't have borders with him.
Yeah, that's why Chris doesn't like him. Chris likes to win, and Frank's good at winning.
Right. If Frank beats me, then I'm going to... but I have beat Frank at least once in the Royal tournament. I beat Frank.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
All I want, hashtag dang Frank, is that I have beaten him. So any last minute thoughts, guys? I think we're just spiraling. I think my whiskey's...
I think we are.
I remember the game that... look at the game called Campy Creatures, if you like B movies. Yeah.
Okay. Well, on behalf of myself, I was going to say Matt at the Mothership. Matt sitting right in front of you, Gil and Chris back at the Mothership. This is Geek Spiel on Air. We'll see you next week. When we maybe also see you on Wednesday when we do Table Crashers at, again, 9 Eastern. So thank you and have a great night.